A worrying story out of the Kruger National Park now. Suspected poisoning has resulted in the deaths of over 100 vultures and a hyena. It's believed that a buffalo was poisoned and the vultures and hyena fed off the carcass. Around 20 birds are also receiving care after feeding on the poisoned buffalo. Police are investigating the incident. For more, I'm joined by SANParks Head Ranger Cathy Dreyer. Cathy, thanks so much for speaking to us this evening. Very worrying indeed. To start off with, what makes you think that this is poisoning? Is there any way that this could be a natural event?
Evening, Anlie. Yeah. No, we definitely suspect that it is a poisoning event. The field ranger stumbled upon the carcass of a buffalo, which was actually caught in a snare. And upon seeing the buffalo caught in the snare, they noticed all the dead vultures around there. So there were some telltale signs that it is poisoning. We obviously can't confirm till all the tests have been conducted, but we are almost certain that it was a poisoning incident.
What would be the motive behind, this kind of an incident? What are your thoughts around the circumstances and what you've seen at the scene?
So we have had other smaller incidents of poisoning, unfortunately, throughout the year. And with this specific incident, we did notice that some of the body parts, the heads or the beaks of the vultures, as well as the claws, were harvested. So we suspect that it has got something to do with the medicine trade, but we can't yet conclusively say. But there are telltale signs, as we understand that it was a poisoning, that it was also linked to harvesting some of the body parts of the animals.
So we understand that the police are also, investigating as it would be a criminal matter, and that those investigations are still at an early stage. But what do those investigations entail from here?
Yeah, so a number of forensic samples were taken of the carcass and of the scene. A number of the vultures were also taken, the poisoned animals, so that we can just determine indeed that it was a poisoning, and then also the type of poisoning, because all of those will give us clues as to where the perpetrator could have obtained that. Various statements were taken, and they'll obviously start with their investigations, but we will also investigate and liaise with some of our partners and communities surrounding the park to try and get some more information regarding this incident. So we will wait for the various samples to come back. Fortunately, at this stage, there are 26 birds that have survived. We've worked closely with our partners such as EWT, who were able to come and assist us in collecting birds that survived, stabilizing them, taking them to a local rehab center. And the feedback we got this afternoon were that 26 were stable, not out of the woods, but they were at least stable.
What's the broader ecological impact of this kind of an incident?
Yes, I mean, obviously vultures as scavengers play a really important role in our environment. They prevent the spread of disease by quickly cleaning up carcasses. So losing this amount of vultures is absolutely devastating to us. It was 4 species of vultures that were targeted. Most of them were white-backed vultures, but all of those vultures are either endangered or critically endangered. What makes it even more horrific is that some of these vultures are currently in their breeding season. So besides losing these 102 vultures, there will now be chicks that will be left abandoned on their nests, which will also most likely die as a result of this incident.
And obviously this has a broader impact on the park itself in terms of tourism, in terms of, a negative perception created with tourists, especially international tourists visiting the park. That's not the kind of scene you want to stumble on when you're hoping to see, the Big Five and Africa at its most glorious.
No, definitely it will impact. But for us, the bigger impact is the ecological impact of losing this amount of vultures in a single poisoning incident. We are seeing an increase in wildlife-related crime, whether it be poisonings or snares, hunting with dogs, and then, of course, the bigger things such as rhino and elephant poaching. And definitely all of those combined have a significant impact on the tourism. And we are all very much dependent on tourists coming back to the parks, especially after the pandemic that we've just been through.
What are our vulture numbers looking like in the Kruger area at the moment?
So we're actually, from next week onwards, undertaking a census to try and determine the vulture numbers in Kruger. We haven't recently embarked on a census to count them, but we will from next week be doing a census and flying, and that will include looking at vulture numbers and possibly looking at the impact that this loss could have had on the Kruger ecosystem. But also we know that vultures travel incredibly large distances. So this not only impacts on Kruger, it also impacts on the greater Kruger area.
Just one last question before I let you go. You're suspecting it's a poisoning. If those responsible for this incident are found and criminally prosecuted, do you think we have the right kind of attitude, willingness from the justice system, the right kind of procedures in place to make sure that there are lengthy sentences to deter these kind of crimes?
Well, we will certainly work hard to get the proper understanding of what this impact is. You know, what it means for vultures that are critically endangered and endangered. The other thing with these poisoning incidents is they are indiscriminate, so they don't target any specific animal. Anything that comes into contact with the poisoned carcass is going to die, whether that be predators such as lions, hyenas, cheetahs, leopards, or a wide number of birds, not only vultures. So it really has a devastating impact. Whether the sentences will be harsh enough, we will have to work closely with our judiciary and with SAPS to ensure that the perpetrators are firstly brought to book, but also that they receive the sentence that is fitting the crime.
Well, thank you very much for your time. Worrying incident. We really do hope you get to the bottom of it. That was SANParks Head Ranger Cathy Dreyer speaking to us about a poisoning that killed 102 vultures and a hyena at the park recently.